Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, continuing into Jurassic June. Yeah, dinosaurs. I don't know. You guys do any dinosaur stuff lately? I haven't done any dinosaur stuff lately, but it's Jurassic June. Shout out to Steven. He was with us last episode, our Patreon producer. I am Illeagle86. I am here with my good friends, Nerdbomber and Techtic. It's summer. It's finally, I feel like it's finally outside time, you know?
Well, it's not officially summer, but we'll allow it.
I think you should allow it. I mean, by the time this comes out, it will be, well, it'll still be like 2 weeks out, but you get the idea. Memorial Day happened.
Get your beach balls out, get your floaties out, get swimming, get your Coronas out, all of the best parts of summer.
Had my first pool experience of 2022 this past, since we were last recorded.
Was it warm enough?
Memorial Day. It was on Memorial Day, so yeah, it was warm enough. I want to state a treatise on going into pools. The more you get older, or as many people would say, the more you age as you get older. You know, when I was in the pool, when I was a lad, I would
You go from heavy splashing to heavy floating.
Exactly. It's like I would jump into the water, be doing all kinds of acrobatics, no regard for my inner ear or just my general safety. Now it's like, is there a float that I could be in? Because otherwise I'm going to get out. That's kind of my, pools are great. Let me clarify. I love pools. I wish I had a pool. I don't. They're great to lay in and stay cool in. But doing stuff? I don't know. Incidentally, another thing that happened to me since we last recorded, I turned 30 years old. So I guess this is it now for me. I can't enjoy things anymore.
It's all downhill from here.
Is that your experience? Do you guys not enjoy pools anymore? Because you guys are also 30, not to out you.
Oh, no. I actually love pools more, but the key here is a good pool float that has good back support, just so you know.
Yeah. No, my dad, shout out to my dad. He's the person whose pool I was in. He spent, first of all, he spent too much money on this. Okay. I want to say he spent around $200 on
a pool float?
Yeah. So my dad, he goes to resorts and stuff. And I guess he was at this resort and it's basically a beanbag chair that's also a pool float. And it's one of those ones where you lay on it, it provides solid support in all areas, but it also manages to submerge itself the exact appropriate amount where your body is largely submerged, but you're still floating, which is the delicate balance. There's probably a science to that. It was incredible. That's all I did in the pool. I didn't even swim. Usually I go in the pool and I'll swim one back and forth just to make sure I can still do it, you know? I didn't even bother with that this time. I was it's Memorial Day. And I just got on the float and just kind of floated around. And it was great. Shout out to pools. Go to your local pool if the weather permits and go for a float.
Or jump in your neighbor's pool when they're not home.
Jump in your neighbor's. That's actually, you're right. That's probably better. You don't have to drive around. Gas is expensive right now. We're not going to talk about pools this whole time. We have to talk about Netflix Geeked Week. And we're also going to be talking about PlayStation's State of Play that happened recently. Lots to dig in both of those areas. And I want to start with the State of Play because I want to make it as clear as I can. I think as I have often in the past that I think I'm officially ready to come out and say I'm Team Sony. At least in terms of Sony versus Microsoft. And I know you guys have horses in both those races. So I want your opinion as well. But when I look at Xbox events like this and then I look at the State of Play and everything they're rolling out and how it looks, I'm just so much more enamored with this. And maybe it's because I own a PS5. But everything looked fantastic. Of course, the one I want to make specific mention of, and I'll turn it over to you guys to make specific mentions of others as well, Callisto Protocol. I mean, this game, Nerdbomber, can't play it.
Yeah, I figured once I saw this, first of all, I will never play this. Second of all, you will try to get me to play this, and I still won't. And third of all, this is right up your alley.
Well, so it's interesting because you have Dead Space coming out, I believe, early next year. I believe it's first quarter 2023. Callisto Protocol was announced, the date was given now as December 2nd, 2022. And for those that don't know, we talked about it on the podcast a while ago when it first was teased in a more of a cinematically driven trailer. This is coming directly from the creator of the original Dead Space games. And watching the trailer, this trailer in particular here, which has some more gameplay in it, it's not particularly hard to tell. I would even go so far as to say this looks in many ways like a Dead Space reskin. Do I have a problem with that?
You shouldn't.
No, of course not. I if anything, it's great. I just, at this point, I'm wondering which game, this game or Dead Space, is going to be the Dead Space-ier game, because it actually might be Callisto Protocol. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if I enjoyed this one more. And it looks fantastic. The whole time I was watching the trailer, I was like, Nerdbomber would hate that. She'd hate that. She would not deal with that very well. And I was into every single second of it. This will be a day one purchase for me, which I don't think I say that very often on this show. Like, we talk about games a lot, and whether they're day one purchases. I rarely stick my neck out like that. This is a day one purchase. This is probably a pre-order, which again is something that I've done maybe a handful of times. You guys do it all the time. I do it a handful of times. I have done it a handful of times. I can't even think of the last game I pre-ordered. Have I pre-ordered a game before?
So the thing that really stuck out for me, games aside, is this perpetual act that Sony does of investing into their hardware. I mean, we've seen it with the initial release of the PlayStation 5, where they had all of the haptic feedback in their controller, and now they're heavily honing in on the PSVR 2 with a whole slew of games, and I think that's really important, right? Because you always want to be in the on the cutting edge. You don't want to be the company playing catch up. So you ask me, am I team Sony or am I team Microsoft? And the answer is yes. But ultimately, I am very much team PlayStation or Sony when it comes to what they do with their hardware. The controllers, like I said, were critically acclaimed, and we're always looking at what's next for this technology. And sure, faster hardware is great and all, but and then what? You know, Microsoft is going to be at this point eventually where Sony's been developing all of this VR stuff forward, and then the last thing they have is the Kinect. It's even remotely similar.
Yeah.
I feel like Microsoft doesn't care about that, though. Like, I don't think that's where they're focusing their VR, AR research. I think they're really looking at VR and AR from not so much an entertainment application, but like a office sort of application, like a professional product they can roll out. So I don't think they care that PlayStation has a space in that market. And I think probably at this point, I don't ever see Microsoft really entering that market themselves, but I could see them more doing.
They're too far behind.
Yeah, I could see them like making a deal with Oculus. They're not Oculus anymore. It's Meta. Sorry,
they're Meta. Yeah,
I could see them cutting a deal with Meta, or there's other headsets. The Index, right? Isn't that one of them as well? Because
doesn't Steam also have one? Or am I mistaken?
I think it's the Valve Index, right?
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
The Xbox is a little bit more closely related in terms of like the UI and coding and just the general hardware, closer to a PC. I feel like they would just make a deal at that point, like, oh, you can be the exclusive headset of the Xbox or whatever, and they wouldn't make their own. They just make it compatible.
But I'm glad, Techtic, that you brought this up, because it's interesting. Not just, I mean, the PSVR 2 doesn't even have a release date yet. We haven't even seen a headset for it. And yet, we're getting a lot of teased content. And I want to make note, too, of specifically it's No Man's Sky VR. It's Resident Evil 4. It looks amazing. It looks so good. A Resident Evil 4 remake that apparently has VR content featured. Horizon VR tie-in. Like, I think what they're doing specifically, or what it seems like they're doing specifically, is they're taking their known quantities, their money makers, and they're saying they're making a concerted effort to drive people to the hardware, to say, I'm going to buy PSVR 2 because I want to play No Man's Sky in VR, or I want to play Horizon in VR. And the footage that we saw for it, especially No Man's Sky, I do want to make special mention of that. I mean, it looked absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it did not look
exactly
like what
the kind of thing you would use it for.
With traditional VR games, it looked like, one of those build around PC setups almost, which one is perfect for a game like that, but two is even better for VR because you don't need a whole big built-in PC setup.
I really liked the Horizon game out of all of the VR games that were showcased, because one of the things, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, I know we've all played the original PSVR, and then I also have the Meta Quest 2, and one of the things that I think holds VR back a little bit is the quality of the image. And I know once you get like a beefed up gaming PC, you can get some really high quality graphics in your VR games, but in terms of what we've seen at, I guess, the lower budget end, which is what I guess I would classify the PSVR and like the Meta Quest 2, it doesn't look realistic. And to me, like, yeah, all of the VR games showcased look great. And I did like the finger tracking that it seems like they're introducing, especially when they showed off Resident Evil Village. But Horizon looked just as beautiful as the main game. And to me, that's super impressive because you don't see that really in accessible console related VR.
Right. And I'm sure that the people who haven't bought the original PSVR, because if I was Sony, I'm probably thinking, okay, the people that bought the PSVR are going to buy the PSVR too. Whether that's a good assumption or not, I don't know. But to me, looking at all these trailers, again, what it seems like to me is they're targeting people who are already in their ecosystem and love their games, but are feeling exactly like what you just said, Nerdbomber, which is, okay, but the tech isn't there yet. They want to show people the tech is absolutely there. It looks beautiful. You want to be in on this. And I just, I think there's a really great future for the PSVR 2. I'm really curious what it looks like because, and I don't think we've seen what it looks like yet, but
we saw the controllers, but not the headset. The controllers
and the headset
had like the halo, kind of like what the Meta Quest has.
I mean, say what you will about the PSVR. I think the PSVR, like, I hear you when it comes to the graphics, but for what it is, I think the PSVR is fantastic. I've had a great experience with it.
Well, especially when you think about like when that came out.
Right. But the headset's super bulky. No matter how you slice it, it's very bulky. It's like, it's heavy. I got a big coconut noggin for those who have never seen me, which I do feel a little bit like it lends itself better to like my form factor as a person. So it's never really bothered me too much, but it's a beefy boy. So I am really curious to see whether they can slim down the headset at all, whether that's even tractable for, a console VR. I don't even know where the processing power needs to go. Probably in the console itself, I would hope.
See, I would feel like because it is attached to the console, like, yeah, part of the bulk of the PSVR inherently is that it's wired. And I don't know if they can get away from that because the PS5 is doing the bulk of the processing power, I'm assuming, for the PSVR 2. But if you look at something like the Meta Quest, I mean, it's completely, everything is all in that one headset, and somehow they've managed to make it light. I mean, it's got more in it than the PSVR headset because it has the outward facing cameras. Like the PSVR original headset doesn't have any cameras built in. And I feel like just looking at how Meta used their space that they had and small components to make a very lightweight, all-inclusive device. Now, if you start offboarding some of those components because they're going to be housed in the PS5, I feel like it has to be lighter, right? It has to be.
Well, so, and I just Googled. PSVR originally came out, it looks like 2016, which actually I didn't realize I thought it was even earlier than that. But nonetheless, that's 6 years that have been heavy with VR development. I will say right now, I don't know how likely this is, but if this thing is wireless, I put money down right now on it without even thinking about it. I would say, take whatever you want of my bank account. I will have one, please. Again, I'm not sure that's particularly likely, but if that were to happen, boy, would I be front and center looking for one. We'll see. I do think it's much more likely that it's at least lighter and slimmer, which, again, I think that alone would draw in a lot of people who were skeptical in the past.
So a lot of the VR games that we saw in the showcase, though, lots of like Resident Evil VR, and I know like the previous Resident Evil VR game was super successful as well. Who is playing this? I genuinely want to know. If you're a listener out there, how can you do this to yourself? Like, that just seems too scary. I can't even play these type of games when I have the TV like 7 feet away from me and all of the lights are on. Like, I could not imagine immersing myself in a horror game. That just sounds terrible. It sounds like a bad time.
Well, and it also, like, to me, that seems like a playing field for just like kind of supercharged gimmicks. Like, just a lot of jump scares is probably what I imagine they are. I would hope they're more than that, but at face value, I guess.
I really hope
how I feel about
that there's a lot more horror games, especially in VR, that leverage the 80s horror genre. And I've mentioned this before, where they put this disconcerting, uncomfortable scariness where there's no jump scares at all, but you're just unreasonably terrified at the the level of discomfort, if that makes sense.
So you want like Pet Cemetery VR or like Goosebumps VR?
I want none of that, but I think that's a much cooler way to do the horror
Someone
genre.
does. We're going to talk about 80s horror a little bit later. Wink, 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 nudge, nudge. But I want to make special mention of Resident Evil 4 being remade. A, because I love remakes. I think they should always happen. I'm always pro remake. I know people like, it's the exact opposite of how I feel about movies, where I'm like, don't remake that. Video games, I'm like, yeah, you nailed it the first time, just remake it with better graphics. I just think it's always going to be a winner, and Resident Evil 4 is like, I've never played it all the way through, but it's like one of the canonical, like, I'm sure it won Game of the Year it came out. I remember for the GameCube, we had a demo disc for this, which gave you whatever, the first like mission's worth of play or something, and played the crap out of it. Hadn't played any Resident Evil games prior to that, but I remember A, it was scary, and B, it was super, super fun. So I just think this is great. Very on board. Did you guys play? First of all, what's your Resident Evil? Because we're going to talk about Resident Evil later too. What's your Resident Evil exposure? Because mine's pretty minimal.
I just want to give you the opportunity to guess my Resident Evil exposure.
Yeah. Well, I guess, Techtic, what's your Resident Evil exposure?
Movies
only? Is that for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I've only seen the first movie. Pretty good, especially for when it came out. Really fun. Yeah, the Resident Evil kind of storyline seems just totally bananas to me at this point. Like, I think in Resident Evil 4, I think the president's involved. I'm not positive. Someone's probably laughing at me on Twitter right now, and that's honestly totally justified. But I love remakes. I love horror games. Resident Evil 4, big old thumbs up from your boy. Other things that we got from the state of play that I have not yet mentioned. I would be remiss if I did not shout out Spiderman Remastered. Coming to PC. This is, I feel like, big. This is a big deal. If you're out there, first of all, if you're out there and you have a PlayStation, you haven't played Spider-Man yet, because I know someone who's in this situation. What are you doing?
Who is it, and can we publicly shame them?
I'm trying to I can't remember who it is. I know somebody who is in that situation. It might be my little brother. At which point, by all means, go ahead and shame him. I mean, it's easily in my top 10 games ever. So, if you have, that brings me to my next point. If you have a PC and you've been waiting, wait no longer. August 12th, 2022, which is a Friday. So kick out of work and buy this, and that's going to be your whole weekend and probably some subsequent weekends.
Yeah, because then they'll obviously buy the next
want it to be. Right. Exactly. I think... Yeah, Miles Morales is coming to PC later in the fall, so they're kind of priming the pump there. But yeah, A+ to that. Again, love remakes. And then we got some news on Stray, which I know we talked about this.
Yeah, Nerdbomber's excited for this one.
Yeah, Nerdbomber's getting in on this. This is coming July 19th, so
this is
big.
It's
It's right, Alley Cat. This game is going to be one of their first tiered games available on PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, available to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium subscribers, which are two of the new tiers that I think we talked about a few episodes back that Sony is introducing, kind of moving towards a vaguely Game Pass-ish sort of thing. So July 19th, if you're a member of either of those two tiers, this game just kind of falls into your lap like a cat would. I mean, yeah, Stray looks very pleasant. I don't know. Nerdbomber, take it away. Are you still in gush mode about this one, or just kind of...
I am pretty excited about this. Like, first of all, I don't think there's a lot of games where you control an animal, especially in this regard. It seems like a very natural game, and it feels like they've somehow captured the essence, and not that I would know what the essence of being a cat is, but like it feels like they captured that. I don't know if that's a correct statement, but like it feels like it is. And I really also like the way that as the cat, you interact and you're the only kind of like living creature in this otherwise robotic like droid world. And I'm really interested to see what the greater overarching story is, because it's not just you like a silent cat wandering through, like you're talking, there's dialogue. So I'm really curious to see what the writing in this game is going to be like. And as much as I love animals and the cat aspect, I think the world itself is very intriguing to me. I really like the art style and just the general vibe. Because I mean, you guys know, I'm really big into like sci-fi books, movies, TV shows, all that kind of stuff. So I'm here for this and I'm very excited. I know I've seen it now. This is not the first trailer that we've gotten for this game. We've seen the trailers pop up quite often lately, and every time I see a trailer for this game, I'm just like, I can't wait. And now it's on the horizon.
Well, so I also want to note, about Stray, and scrolling through the rest of the trailers that were popped out here. Street Fighter 6 got a gameplay trailer. Resident Evil, oh god, what is that Roman numeral? 16 got a release window for next summer. Got another trailer for that. But if you don't count Callisto Protocol, which I'm not because it's basically a Dead Space reskin, Stray is the only original IP here. Everything else is, and I know I just said, coming right off the heels of me saying I love remakes, do more remakes. That doesn't mean it's not worth highlighting original IP and how important that is. So yeah, shout out to Stray.
Oh, there was more original IP than just Stray.
Was there?
Yeah, Eternights. That looked really good.
I must have missed that one, or it's not. Well, it's not in the article that I have in front of me.
That was it was like a dating action sort of combination game. When we were watching the trailer, my immediate reaction was like, but then it definitely got cooler once they showed combat. I'm not a big dating sim person, but Techtic.
The fighting looked really cool, and if I have to flirt with a couple people along the way, so be it. If I can get a cool sword fist and hammer fist, I'm there.
Dating is action-packed enough for me without the actual action.
If you haven't seen this trailer, it's very strange. It opens with his arm gets cut off and blood squirts everywhere. And then he's like, don't worry, folks, I got a glowy hand. And then he uses that to flirt on women.
Flirt on women?
Yeah, needless to say, I need a dating swimmer because I don't even know the lingo.
I also forgot to mention Season A Letter to the Future, which is coming out this autumn 2022. Looks like a very peaceful game about, and I'm quoting, exploring, recording, meeting people, and unraveling the strange world around you. Traveling around on a bike, so it sounds very peaceful. Roller drone skates, yeah, okay, I had a bad article in front of me. That's my bad. I see now that there are quite a few original IPs. However, I want to ask about Walking Dead in particular. This is another one that PSVR 2. I guess I want to ask the general question. Not that I was this was fine. I didn't feel any particular way about this. Is Walking Dead ever going to be over? That's just kind of because at one point I was like, it's over. And that was 5 years ago.
Well, it's kind of like a Marvel thing, right? It's on TV, it's in toys, it's in comics. It's this whole media of it. And might as well do podcast, am I right? Hashtag Squirrel Girl.
Well, it's just the zombie apocalypse is a generic premise that you can use without slapping the Walking Dead name on it, probably a lot. And I think there's this crutch that's being used innumerably of people just calling something Walking Dead because they can get a hold of the rights to the IP, and then it's just kind of like a generic zombie thing. And I want to express some displeasure with that publicly here on the podcast, if that's okay with you guys.
I mean, I would definitely agree with that because so it started as the comic. The comic is pretty much done now. I know they're still churning out the spin-off comics, and I know they have a Clementine one. If you've played the Telltale series, now they have a spin-off of that. But the mainline comics are done, and even the TV show that petered off, and all of the spin-off TV shows, I don't think Fear the Walking Dead ever really took off like they wanted it to.
No, because people were like, okay, Walking Dead's over, so let it be over. I think Fear the Walking Dead, didn't that premiere before the first one even ended? It's what are you?
Yeah, it did.
Overlapping these? It's do what Game of Thrones did. Give people 2 or 3 years to kind of cool off a little bit, and then bust out whatever the new one's called. I can't even think of it. Dragon something or other.
Yeah, I agree. It should just be put. The problem is it's the undead, right? So it can never die. But it's zombies.
Maybe that is what they're thinking. I don't know what they're thinking, but that could potentially be it.
The game that I really want to talk about, and I'm just
go on.
Very excited about this one. So there are a few genres that I don't really like that Nerdbomber likes, and vice versa. And the one that I like that she cannot really stand is fighting games, because to her they're just button mashing.
Yeah, I apologize.
I knew Techtic was going to go to Street Fighter 6.
All the fighting gamers out there,
it's strategy, it's anticipation, it's knowing the character and knowing what moves are best to go against, anticipating that character's skill set.
Hear me out though. I look at the combo list. I fully intend to play with skill. And I look at the combo list, and there's so many arrows. All of the different combos kind of look the same. My eyes glaze over, and then I'm just fat fingering the controller, hoping that I do something cool.
I could not agree more with this assessment. Techtic, you're saying there's skill involved.
There's skill
I
involved.
don't know. I don't even know if I don't know if I agree with that. I look at the combo list and it's like, do you want to do a roundhouse kick? Oh, can you split the atom while doing a backflip? I'm like, well, no, obviously. So I'm just gonna mash stuff. I mean, maybe that's just me saying I'm not good at fighting games, but I'll own that. It's just like, I don't know. There's probably skill to it, but it feels like such a, yeah.
Fighting games aside, this is a fighting game, but they added a lot of non-traditional Street Fighter elements to it that are really exciting. So first and foremost, we saw that it's open world. So you'll be able to explore, interact, kick garbage cans, bump into people, the standard. But the other thing that was kind of interesting is it's centered around a mysterious blue hooded figure. Guys, I'm like 90% sure that's a custom character. And the reason why I say that, and I think what they're going to do is do what they do in like Soul Calibur when you have custom characters, where it's a quote custom character, but it's like a clone of various players' movesets. Because you saw he punched the garbage can and went, Hayuken. So obviously, Ryu's uppercut. And so that's kind of a bummer that you can't make your own custom moves and things like that. But like to have a custom character to be able to run around, to be able to fight and do that with it, that's pretty cool. That's really exciting. That's something new. That's Capcom putting a fresh spin on a pretty dated premise. So
I can get behind the idea of like a Street Fighter game that's open world, like. But again, you're not appealing to me now, especially because like I don't really care for fighting games. When you're like, what if it was a fighting game but also Pokemon, which you don't play? Which like then it's not for me, but I can understand you're appealing to so many people at that point. Because I assume when they say open world, they mean you walk around until you see someone and you just fight them.
Well, then I think it is like a Pokemon battle almost, because we didn't see any like open world fighting. We saw like almost the 2D fighting. So I think you run into something and it's like
right, exactly. Which I think is a great idea. Like on paper and considering what people tend to like who aren't me, that sounds like a moneymaker. So I do applaud the ingenuity. It's not my cup of tea. Techtic, I'll play you sometime and I'll just be mashing buttons the whole time and I'll probably beat you. Hopefully thus invalidating the entire concept of fighting games, but maybe that's a pipe dream. I bet you're probably really good at these games. You seem like an expert, like a button masher who knows combos. I feel like that's as good as you can get at Street Fighter games.
It's the same reason of why whenever I play people in Smash and it's like a free-for-all, I hide in the corner until it's 1v1 so that I can effectively anticipate my opponent's moves.
See, Smash is the same thing for me. A bunch of combos, each character's different.
Yep.
I look at the combo list. It all looks the same.
Well,
my eyes blur over
Smash
and I'm done.
Smash is
easier though,
like,
because
it's light mode.
It's like one direction and one button. It's like there's not like the combos are like two steps. I assume Street Fighter is like, okay, do a loop-de-loop. Now wiggle your left pinky toe and then scratch your opponent's nose in a perfect semicircle, and then you'll kick him in the nuts and he'll die. Like it's like
so
there's
you
like
know the
seven
set
steps
already.
Yeah. Which one did I just say? That was the Thunder and Lightning. I think I just kind of unrolled for you guys here. Yeah, I'll play you sometime. I mean, the thing about I keep calling them Street Fighter games. The thing about fighting games is, to their credit, they are very low impact. Ironically, like you can play one round of it. I remember when I was in college when the new Mortal Kombat came out. Might be dating myself there, but when the new Mortal Kombat came out, yeah, we played that for a few minutes. Like there was like at least a span of like a few weeks where like many nights we would just get together and just kind of like, because people can swap in and out very easily.
It's a great like with your friends. It's great. It's a
great chilling in a dorm room game. Much like I think Super Smash Brothers is, although I kind of agree, Nerdbomber. It's not really my cup of tea either.
Which means you were eliminated on the first round in the tournament. Is that what you're? This feels like projecting.
See,
I mean, sure, you can say that.
There's strategy to that though. So like, I know Smash frustrates me. And part of it, even without like having to mash buttons, I just get lost on the screen. There's just so much happening, especially when you get like bigger games with a ton of people playing, that like, I don't know if it's just my attention span can't keep up or like my eyes just can't track things. And so I will intentionally lose the first match so I get cycled out. And then I can just drink a beer and have a good time and just be.
Just exist.
Hopefully none of my Smash friends listen to this and catch on. Because, sorry, I've been doing this for years.
I think invariably, almost every time I've been asked to play Smash, I'm like asked, someone was like, hey, you want to play Smash? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I pick it up and they're like, oh, by the way, I'm the best Smash player in the world. And I'm like, okay, then why am I doing this? And then like I just get absolutely tromped and I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that's over. That's like that. That's been my experience with like 90% of Smash Brothers that I've played, which is not to say it's a bad game. Probably if anything, it just says I'm bad at Smash Brothers. But again, I'll own that. That's my cross to bear. Yeah, state of play happened. A lot of games were announced. What did we not talk about that you wanted us to talk about more? Hit us up at Illeagle86.
And Final Fantasy looked awesome.
Final Fantasy looked awesome. Tactic? I have nothing to say about Final Fantasy.
It looked absolutely gorgeous and fun.
Okay, I'll give you that.
It's not turn-based fighting, which I know you hate.
Graphics, guys. The graphics here were great, pretty much across the board. I've been waiting for graphics for a long time. I complain about it a lot on the podcast. I'm like an old man. Things are going great graphically over at Sony. So at Illeagle86, at OW Tactic, at OW Nerdbomber, and our main show account at Online Warriors 1. Let us know, what have we not hit on that you want us to hit on? What games did you like? What games did you not like? How awesome does the Callisto protocol look? I mean, my goodness. And are you going to buy the PSVR 2? And what do you hope that it has? Answer any and all of those questions, or just talk to us over on Twitter. We talked to Steven on Twitter. Steven is our Patreon producer. As a result, we talked to him on Twitter. No, that's not all that happens. He also gets access to the monthly secret segment and vlog on our Patreon. Also gets the occasional guest spot on the show, which he was on last week, if you listen to that. And he gets this producer shout out and input into the weekly game segment as well. There's also a Squire level of support, not quite as high as Steven at the night level, but it gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And there's also a page level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. And all of the details on all of those levels of support are over at patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast. Go check us out over there. Consider giving back to the show. If you want to hear me wax poetic about the Callisto Protocol or about how I don't like fighting games more, then you should consider giving back, helping us keep the mics on, keep our voices coming into your ears, your ear holes. So, patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast. Thanks again to Steven for continuing to support the show and continuing to guest with us. And we'll take a short break now to shout out a sponsor, and we will get back to you in a moment to talk about Netflix Geek Week. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because we heard them advertised on other shows, and quite frankly, I wanted to see what all the hype was about, and let me tell you, the hype was real. So, what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. It's quick and easy for me to toss back in the morning as I'm getting ready for work. One scoop into a glass of water helps me wake up even on tired mornings, and I know my gut and immune system will be prepped for the day. And I know what you're thinking, green drink, blech. But Athletic Greens green drink actually tastes really good. The best part is that I get all my supplements in for way cheaper than taking individual supplements themselves. It costs less than $3 a day, so you're investing in your health for cheaper than a cup of coffee. It's also a trusted product. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews and comes recommended by professional athletes and leading health experts alike. And for every purchase, you're helping to feed kids. Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thanks to Athletic Greens for helping to sponsor the show, and now we'll get back to the episode. Netflix, it is Geeked Week, according to Netflix. Or was it Geeked Week last week? I don't keep up with this.
I think today, which is the day that we're recording, Monday, the 6th, was the first day of Geeked Week.
First day of Geeked Week. We got a lot of, I guess, ostensibly geeky content. A lot of trailers for shows new and existing, a lot of which I think are pretty geeky. We mentioned Resident Evil before. There's going to be a Resident Evil series, so that's pretty cool. Premiering on July 14th. Zombie dogs, giant spiders, lickers. tyrant, all kinds of things showing up
Mlem.
there. Okay. Was that the liquor?
Yeah. They just go around. Mlem.
Okay. I think we should just kind of go around and say something that we're particularly excited for, whether it's a new show, whether it's a continuing show. And, Nerdbomber, if you want to go first? Ladies first. Chivalry's not dead. Sorry, I put you on the spot really bad. Take a moment.
I can go ahead and
Live
answer
your
this.
best life. Go ahead and answer it.
So for me, you guys know I enjoy anime, and I've watched my fair share of One Piece back in the day.
Can you tell me about One Piece? I think this would be a good podcast, like educational. What we saw of One Piece, let me just say what we saw in the video. In the video, we saw kind of as a teaser for the show, which is going to be live action, we saw some of the set designs. And I quickly learned, because I went into this knowing nothing about what One Piece is, which shame on me, being a nerd podcaster and not knowing. But pirate anime, is that basically the gist?
Pirate super
Pirates.
power-y anime, I guess. Like everyone, like it's not standard anime. There's, people have abilities and various surprise attacks and tricks, and it got a significant amount of disbelief. I mean, for example, the story surrounds Luffy, and he has the ability to like stretch his arms and things like that. So it's not very much just a pirate anime, which that's one of my concerns with the live action. We've seen it on
leaning into the pirates based on my exposure to it right now. It's leaning.
But they gotta have the abilities, and there was this fear in Marvel, right, of Miss Marvel having stretchy limbs, and I can kind of get it, right? It looks awkward and strange in CGI, so it's
hard to do convincingly. Yeah,
I am kind of interested on how that's going to look and how they're going to do that, because Netflix has done live action animes, and sometimes it just doesn't work well at all.
Well, and I mean, One Piece,
like Death Note, for example, was weird. I didn't like Death Note. If any of you guys watched the live action, but One Piece, what's funny about the show trailer that we saw, where they're showing these grandiose sets, some of the best pirates that he comes across on the adventure have these like basically a paddle boat, like these rinky-dink little nothing, and that's their grand pirate ship, and it's hilarious. There's no crew, it's just the one person, and there is nothing standard pirate about this adventure, and that's what's going to be a lot of fun. We've already seen the heart cannonballs and some of the other items that we expect in the show, and so this is going to be a wild ride. I think it's going to bring people who haven't seen the anime to it. They're not really going to know what to expect, and they're going to enjoy every second of it. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's action-packed, there's heartfelt moments. It's just a great show overall, and I'm excited for people who didn't know about it to get into it.
It's going to draw a bunch of people. I think, because I do think it has that draw. It's obviously going to draw people who are fans of the original anime content associated with it. But based again on the video we've seen, the content we've seen, the sets we've seen, I think it has the grabbiness required. I mean, when you think about Netflix, right? The typical use of Netflix is you're scrolling through Netflix looking for something to watch. A lot of the time, you don't know what you're going to watch when you get on Netflix. So you're kind of scrolling around looking for something eye-catching, right? I think this is going to have that to its credit. So we'll see what comes along there.
I also think the actor who's playing Luffy, his voice is perfect. Absolutely perfect. So they nailed that.
We shall see about One Piece. For me, I'm going to go next because I want to give Nerdbomber maximum time.
I did actually I finally came up with the one that I wanted to talk about.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
So 1899 was one that kind of stuck out for me.
Yes.
This is like...
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. I'm excited.
This is like a almost like a mystery, but also horror. And the premise of this is really what got me. And I don't really like scary stuff. You guys know that. But I also really like things where you kind of have to figure out what's going on. And I feel like it almost has like the same, it's not the same vibe as Stranger Things at all, but like the premise where you kind of have to like pay attention to what's going on and piece together the puzzle as you're watching it. And it is kind of like dark and spooky elements is pretty neat. So I think this is actually a German show. It's from the same people who made Dark, which was really popular on Netflix, I believe. I saw trailers, never watched it. You liked it though, right?
You got it. Well, oh yeah, I'm sure I talked about it on the podcast. Dark was awesome. Dark was a great show. And it's the nice thing about Dark, I think it's 4 or 5 seasons. like everything you just mentioned, the fact that it's kind of this, like, I don't know if dark is so much horror necessarily. Dark is a little bit more supernatural, true crimey, but it's not true crime. It's like supernatural crime drama, I guess is what you would call it. Maybe less horror aligned, but I think it has a lot of the common elements that are drawing you to 1899. This wasn't what I was going to mention, but I totally agree. I think this is going to be an absolute hit. I will probably be watching this one.
And even just like the story premise, like the idea, basically it's historical because I think it's 1899 because that's the year that this is purported to take place in. And it's a bunch of European immigrants who are kind of, it seems like escaping maybe something nefarious, like maybe their dark past, to go to New York. And then they come across a ship in the middle of the ocean that's kind of adrift. And then from there, it gets kind of like mysterious. And that just seems super cool. I really like that premise. So I'm here for it. It kind of reminds me, there was a game, I should know this, hold on.
The Oberdin? The mystery game by the pirate ship?
No, it was Man of Medan. It was the Dark the Dark Pictures anthologies. And we actually played that during Halloween. Tactic and I like swapped controllers back and forth, and I'll be honest, he held the controller and made decisions for me because I was too scared. But it was entertaining, and we didn't play through the whole thing, but just the idea of like adrift ships and the spooky stuff you could find on there, I've always found that super cool. Even like back in the day, like the tragedy of the Titanic, I always found like the actual like underwater footage of them going through the Titanic to be just fascinating. Obviously terrible and horrifying for all of the people on board, but like just fascinating,
right? The
footage that they got down there and what's preserved. So yeah,
1899. I want to shout out the Midnight Club because I think the Midnight Club is going to combine elements of a couple things I watched in the past year on Netflix that I enjoyed, which honestly these days with Netflix, it's a bit of a rarity. I kind of want to mention that, we were hearing a lot about Netflix is going downhill. They're losing money. They're going to start asking people they're not going to let people share subscriptions and everything. We're seeing trailers for a lot of new content. Like they're still pumping out a lot of content. They're still very much alive. The Midnight Club comes from Mike Flanagan, who did Midnight Mass. I know I talked about Midnight Mass when I watched it last year. Really fantastic horror show. We also watched Haunting of Bly Manor, which we liked. Haunting of Hill House we couldn't get into. That was actually the first one that Mike Flanagan did for Netflix. It's probably the most popular one, too. We just couldn't get into that one. But clearly a strong horror pedigree. So again, Nerdbomber, this one's probably not for you. Mike Flanagan also did Dr. Sleep, the movie, and that was pretty good as well. I think it combines elements of all of those shows, which a lot of which I really liked, with kind of this teenage horror thing. Did you guys ever watch Fear Street? The Fear Street trilogy? Again,
No.
Probably not Nerdbomber's thing. So the Fear Street trilogy came out on Netflix, I believe it was last summer, actually. It was not around Halloween. I think it was last summer we watched it. It was a trilogy of horror movies that took place in different, they were kind of like horror period pieces. So one of them was 90s. One of them, I think, was 70s. And one of them was like 1800s or something. And they all kind of featured this interconnected web of characters who in part 3 wound up kind of coming together. And it had a very cool kind of old school horror movie vibe, like a Nightmare on Elm Street thing. Probably not coincidental considering that it was called Fear Street. And I think it was also based on R.L. Stine books. But it was a lot of fun, kind of harkened back to those old, like, almost like the Scream movies, like a bunch of teenagers trying to survive, basically. This is going to, I think, take that group of teenagers and put them into a much more Mike Flanagan-y situation where you're going to get something that might not be so much jump scary as it is just pervasively unsettling. Because, these Mike Flanagan shows didn't have a whole lot of jump scares in them. Just a lot of what I'll call deeper horror. And I'm really excited for that. Also, a really cool title, Midnight Club. Rahul Kohli, who played the sheriff in Midnight Mass, and Owen in Haunting of Bly Manor, kind of announced this one. He's also going to be in it, along with Zach Gilford, who I love. I loved him in Midnight Mass, and he was also, of course, fantastic in Friday Night Lights, the show from a long time ago. So definitely excited for this one. And yeah, also kind of, I wouldn't say excited, intrigued by the Sandman. I don't really know a whole lot about
get a good
the graphic
feel
novel
about
upon which it's based. It's kind of like, it's weird because it's kind of like fully embracing like this, is it okay for me to say emo? It's embracing a very emo vibe.
It's based on a comic book that, guys, I'm gonna say it, I have not read. No idea.
That's
about
wild
this.
to me.
Looks like I know what I'm getting someone for Christmas.
He looks very pasty. The Sandman himself. Very Robert Pattinson-y.
I do wonder if they're going to play AC/DC. No, sorry. Metallica. My bad. I corrected myself. I got it.
I was waiting in the trailer. I was waiting for either Metallica or that old school, like, Mr. Sandman.
No, it's got to be.
When it comes to shows like this, I always worry. Well, worry is a strong word. I don't really care what happens to it. But like fantasy shows like this that require big set pieces and great special effects, I worry that Netflix can't pull it off, nor could a lot of studios.
I mean, based on what they're showing with One Piece, maybe they're really opening their checkbooks.
Possibly. And they're probably, it seems like they're going pretty hard in this genre, considering the success of things like The Umbrella Academy, which we got a trailer for, I think it was season 3 today. But I worry about that. You mentioned a little while ago, and not exactly the same thing, but like how Paramount Plus did Halo, and it kind of devolved into a sci-fi original feeling show. And that's kind of where I see things like this going. And I don't really mean that in a good way. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but that's kind of where I see shows like this going.
I don't think that's going in. Like you're touching on something more like The Imperfects, which is another show that is coming to Netflix, but that's more, superhero-y that we're going to see. I think this is more, I want to say Alice in Wonderland-y, where, it appears the Sandman was locked up and he wants to bring his world back to what it once was prior to being captured and maybe invoke vengeance on those who captured him. And I think that's really where it's going to focus, is this phantasmic world and be centered around that main character. I don't think it's going to be superhero-y. I
am torn, not to totally change subjects, but I am super torn by Wednesday, because I think Wednesday, like, I've never been particularly into the Addams Family, but I'm willing to acknowledge it as an entertainment institution that will probably never die, and I'm not sure that it should. I don't tend to like Tim Burton that much.
I kind of feel you there. I really do.
But if you ask me, like, pick a director to do the Addams Family, he's like probably the top of the list. Like, he's probably the most Addams Family person ever, just in general. Just kind of his sensibility and how he does things, and how everything he does is kind of this like whimsical, creepy thing. It seems like a really, really good marriage. And the trailer itself was, super simple, but I think it got the point across. And I think that could be a big hit. Again, if only because they're going to maybe draw new fans, but also fans of the Addams Family, like the original show and all the various renditions that have happened afterwards. That one could be a powerhouse. So, yeah. Got a bunch of other trailers for things entering Season 2 and Season 3. Sweet Tooth Season 2, Lock and Key Season 3, Fate the Winx Saga Season 2, Warrior Nun Season 2, Shadow and Bone Season 2, Manifest Season 4. Now, I'm breezing through all of these because I have not watched a single one of these shows.
I was just going to say, every time...
Stop me if you have.
Every time that, Netflix is a Geeked Week, I've heard good things about a lot of these shows, but I always forget how many original shows that Netflix pumps out. I can't even fathom having the time to watch them all right now. There's so many different shows that they have, and I always forget about them. But that also could be
I've heard All of Us Are Dead is really good. That one also got renewed for Season 2. Mm-hmm. I've heard it's great. But again, like you said, it's just, there's so many, it's almost an oversaturation of content. I don't have time for all this, Netflix. I don't know, I could have time for it if I just only watch Netflix all the time. Maybe that's what they want me to do.
I can't help but feel like that's part of why they have money problems right now, though. Think about if they just scaled back a little bit. And I know probably fans of one of these shows are going to be like, how dare you? But if you cut the list in half, you would still get a lot of people watching.
I feel like getting bigger audiences for shows is probably better than getting a bunch of tiny audiences for a bunch of shows. I feel like there's an argument to be made there. I don't know if I have the marketing skill to make it, but that's my opinion. I've always wanted to watch Manifest. It seems like a very interesting idea for a show. Are you guys familiar with Manifest? This is the one where a plane takes off and it lands and the people get out and they're like, "What happened?" And they're just walking off the plane like normal, and they see the people come up to them and they're like, "We thought you were dead. This plane's been in the air for 5 years. Like 5 years had passed since they took off. So like they don't even know where they went or anything. They just kind of like touched down." And 5 years have passed. I just think that's a very interesting one-line premise for a show.
No, it gives me very Lost vibes.
Yeah, well, and I loved Lost. So like those are two. You just named two things. Like I think it's a really good like. I think a good show. You should be able to describe the premise of it in a sentence like that without really missing any detail. And some shows are really good at that, and some shows aren't. And I've always wanted to watch Manifest again, just never gotten around to it. Getting to season 4, so it's. Seems to be moving along quite well. What did we not mention from Geeked Week, guys? Where did we fail? Let us know. Twitter handle is mentioned earlier in the episode. What are you the most excited for? I'm gonna take the first "What are you up to" today because I'm gonna stick with Netflix, and I'm gonna publicly apologize to Netflix here. Actually, I believe last week on the show, I don't know if I said Stranger Things was over. I know I said Marvel was over, and I stand by that. I may have at least implied that I thought Stranger Things was over, and that I wasn't excited about watching it, and that I was going to begrudgingly watch it, and probably not get that much out of it. I was wrong. Stranger Things Season 4, we are about halfway through it, and man, does it hold up. Like, yes, the kids have all aged quite a bit. Like 2 or 3 years went by since the last season came out. The Duffer Brothers really, really know what they're doing. The direction is a direction of the show. I mean, not necessarily what the director does, but like the narrative direction of the show is so crystal clear, and that shines through super well. The cast is amazing, very tightly plotted, great set of characters, amazing soundtrack, amazing 80s vibe, a lot of really good period piece attention to detail. I don't have a bad thing to say about it right now. I think they're hitting the bullseye exactly where they're supposed to be, and I'm as surprised as anyone to say that. But we're pretty hooked into that right now.
I'm not that surprised though. Like, think about all the time they had to nail this down.
And the problem with it too is like it reminds me how good Netflix shows can be, and how so many of them are not. Like Netflix content, you have to be able to kind of weed through it and find the good ones. And like Stranger Things, when it first came out, there wasn't this inundation of content. It was easy to see that it was good. There may be other shows like this that are kind of hiding amongst all this kind of chaff, and that bothers me. Yeah, Netflix shows can still be good. That's what this proves. You know, I don't know if Stranger Things has reached a point where it's just kind of coasting on its own momentum, but it doesn't feel that way watching it, and that's again definitely to its credit. I don't know. Did you guys watch? Are you caught up on Stranger Things up to season 4? I don't even know if
we're up to season 4. We haven't started season 4.
Okay, well, I think it's phenomenal. You don't need to rush to watch it because it doesn't end until July, I believe. I think they're holding back the finale, which is like 2 hours long. I will say, the episodes are long. They're all over an hour, but they don't really feel that long when you watch them. They're pretty well paced. So if you're worried about that, I understand, but you'll be okay. That's kind of my general feedback on that. So I wanted to shout that out. The other thing I wanted to shout out, I bought, first of all, my birthday happened, and I got some fantastic gifts. I got some puzzle mystery games from my two co-hosts, as well as a book that I am really looking forward to sinking my teeth into. I also got some Nintendo Switch eShop money, which went directly to another board game port, which some people might find boring, but to them I say, heck off. Sagrada, one of my favorite board games ever, has a really well done port on the Nintendo Switch. Actually better than the Wingspan port that I've been playing, finding Sagrada to be infinitely more satisfying. If you're a fan of dice drafting, it's a can't miss. So I'll just shout that out briefly and turn it over to my good buddy Techtic. Techtic, what's the story, man?
So one of the main things we did this past week was we traveled down for a family wedding, and you guys know I love food. And we didn't even go down that many states. But one of the things that I found very strange, and it might have just been completely random, is why is everybody putting gravy on everything? We had steak, came with a side of gravy. I got a breakfast sandwich, side of gravy. What is all the gravy?
Even we got little donuts, and it came with I'm not even joking.
Like a sweet
Cinnamon
gravy.
Yeah, it was like a sweet cinnamon gravy.
Like,
it was
guys,
confusing.
Chill with your gravies.
That grosses me out, honestly. Gravy is like, I've come around to gravy over the past like 5 to 6 years. For a while, I was like, gravy's gross. And even now, I'm still kind of working my way into it.
Your steak should never need gravy. Maybe like a mushroom
Mashed potatoes.
glaze, like just
me-
like whatever you're basting your pan in with some mushrooms and sauteed onions. But like, it shouldn't be a sauce, in my opinion.
Turkey
the steak should be able to,
and mashed potatoes.
sure, but steak
meatloaf.
should be able to stand on its own. If it's a good steak, it should be able to stand on its own.
Right.
Shouldn't need that nonsense.
Totally agreed. Totally.
Same with breakfast sandwiches. The cheese should be what delivers you to just that wonderful,
Flavor town?
yes, that wonderful bite. It should be just melty, gooey cheese.
Well, and gravy, like, if I put gravy on a breakfast sandwich, I'm not coming back. That's it for the day.
Yeah, you're going to
I'm
bed.
down.
You're going back. You just don't even come find me. I'm
You're
going back
going
to bed.
Right. That's no good for anyone.
So there was that, and then the other thing that I want to talk about is whatever Nerdbomber did, because
I love how your update was basically just shout out to gravy. That's-
shout out to Gravy.
I mean, look,
or no,
call it what
no
it is.
shout outs to Gravy.
Well, a lot of our week was spent, on that.
We drive
trip.
everywhere, so it was the day of travel, there and back.
Days of gravy.
And Gravy.
Y'all need to chill with the gravy, all right? You heard it here first. That's the tech tip for today. Chill out with the gravy.
But in the meantime, kind of like in between, so like, trying to fall asleep at night in the hotel, all that kind of stuff, we binged American Auto. It's only got 10 episodes. It's currently, the full season is on Hulu. It premiered on network TV. I can't even tell you what network because we caught it on Hulu and I don't pay attention. I want to say maybe ABC, but not clear. This is a Justin Spitzer show. He was one of the writers on Scrubs and also Superstore. So if you liked either of those two shows, kind of the same humor, but American Auto is focused on the auto industry and basically following the adventures of the kind of misguided, befuddled executives at an American auto company. And it was really entertaining, I will say.
NBC. by the way.
NBC, thank you.
NBC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am one of those people. I really like workplace comedies. I think Justin Spitzer is really good at the workplace comedy. Like, I remember when we watched Superstore, it was so relatable as someone who worked for so long in a grocery store. And granted, like, there was some time between when I last worked retail and when I watched Superstore, but the fundamentals of a workplace are all kind of the same and relatable, no matter like the time, the era, or what industry. And so American Auto was pretty solid. And Techtic, I don't know if you had an opinion one way or another on the show, but it was also just interesting too, because, as engineers, like, I'm not going to say I'm a big car buff, but like I have a general understanding of, the design process of automobiles and what goes into them. And the premise is basically like the CEO who takes over this auto company has never worked in the car industry, came from pharmaceuticals, and has no idea what she's doing. And it's just kind of funny to watch that kind of stuff. I don't know. I enjoyed it. And then I also read a few books. I binged a couple rom-com books. The People You Meet on Vacation, I believe it's called, and also The Unhoneymooners. They were good summer reads, good to read in the car, very light and airy. You know how they're going to end, as you would with a rom-com movie. It like, you know exactly what you're going to get. So it's a fun, light, fluffy read.
Yeah, summer reads are a genre, and they're very carefree. They don't have to be, Pulitzer winning, whatever. Just let them be what they are. I wish I could read in the car. Also, side note, I can't read in the car.
Car sick.
That would be cool if I could.
They have those glasses
right.
now. I don't know if you saw them, but they're like the liquid filled. They're like circular, and then they have liquid in it, almost like a level.
You look so cool in those. Like
And
cooler than normal.
Sounds like a practical joke.
Well, it basically, the water tilts as your car moves. So then your brain is kind of tricked into thinking like that's the horizon. And so it like levels out your seasickness. I don't know.
These cannot be real.
They are 100% real and they look absolutely ridiculous, but I've heard they work.
Make this Make this the cover photo for the episode, please. Just look up the photo of these and like just the stock photo of like the companies that sell these. These are the funniest looking things I've ever seen in my life. They don't look real.
So I think we just came up with a new vlog idea, though, where you get these and then
I try them.
we drive around and see if you throw up in the car as you read.
They're pretty cheap, so that sounds pretty good to me.
Loser of trivia has to wear them for a full day at work.
Oh, all right. That's the stakes.
Yeah.
Those stakes might be a little high for me.
We don't
well,
get into our careers here, man.
Right. I'll wear them. That's what I'll say. I'll wear them if I lose. How about that? Nerdbomber's hosting today. Take us on an intellectual journey, would you, Nerdbomber?
All right, so this week's topic, very topical with our news in the PlayStation State of Play, is Final Fantasy. And I know nobody here is like the biggest Final Fantasy nerd, so I think the playing field is pretty level here. As always, Price is Right style. It's all numerical based answers. Get as close as you can without going over. Whoever is the closest will get a point. And best of 5 will win the game. Dun, dun, dun.
Easy.
We'll have Techtic go first so Illeagle can get the first kind of advantage because I think you're losing these days.
Yes. I'm 7-7. Techtic is 7-6. You're 6-8. So really, you're the one who's losing. But hey, you're hosting. So
yeah, I can't
really
do anything about that today.
Yeah.
Okay, so our first question. Final Fantasy II on the NES has the smallest inventory in the series. How many items does the game allow you to hold at a time?
This was 8.
I was going to say 9, but I don't want to use my +1. I feel like I have to go under. I'm going to say 4. I'm going to just cut you in half.
All right, so Techtic gets his first point here. The game allowed for only 32 individual items to be in
You
your
had some
inventory.
Oh, jeez.
You guys kind of undershot.
Okay, fair enough.
But here's my philosophy, and I would have guessed a multiple of 8. Think about it. It was all 8, 16, 24.
Oh, 8-bit. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And apparently the issue, though, because as I said, this was the smallest inventory in the entire series, the issue was made worse because you also had to store key items in your inventory. So then by the time you had all of your key items, you could only have 18 free slots by the end of the game for other things. So Techtic has the first point in the game, but Illeagle, don't worry. There's still plenty of opportunities for you to come back.
It's fine. It's all good.
Final Fantasy XIII was the fastest selling game in the series at the time of its release. How many copies did it sell in the first 2 weeks?
8 million. 8 million.
Was it released worldwide or in a specific location?
I don't have that information, but I would assume since Square is a Japanese company that it's probably worldwide.
And what did Illeagle say?
8 million.
Can I know what year it was released?
No.
What are these follow-up questions? Just do what I did. Just pick a number out of thin air. That's the fun way to do it.
1.
He is using his one spot.
That's not a spot. Yeah.
Well, you can only do +1 and 1 time. So it worked in your favor, though, because you won.
That's crap.
It sold 1.7 million copies in the first 2 weeks that it was on sale.
Come on, guys. You should have bought more.
Well, it was only 2
there?
weeks.
Yeah, and it's very popular.
8 million
I don't know,
feels
man.
like a lot for that.
All right, I got to go for the clean sweep here on the last 3. Challenge accepted.
So, sticking in the realm of Final Fantasy XIII, one of the super bosses, the Dragon Eternight, has the highest HP out of any enemy in the entire Final Fantasy series if you bring him within a Chaos Infusion while playing on hard mode. What is the HP of Eternight in this scenario?
This is 800,000.
Way higher than that. 1.5 million.
Illeagle gets his first point. The answer is 57,750,000 health points.
Yeah,
That
when you
will be
get
a
when
long
you get
battle.
to like the end bosses, like one attack is like 30,000. I should have gone way higher.
Right. Sweet. I'm on the board.
2-1.
Feels good.
Next question up. There are at least how many separate enemies in Final Fantasy XI, which has more separate enemies than any other game in the Final Fantasy series?
Can you say that question again? What?
It's a thinker.
Sorry.
Thinker.
How many separate Okay. Final Fantasy XI has more enemies than any other game in the series. How many separate enemies are in Final Fantasy XI?
Boy, much better phrasing that time. My brain didn't feel like it was melting out of my ears. Look, this is going to be trouble for me. I'm going to say 128.
So I could seal the deal.
You could seal the deal here.
Yeah. You look, you're entitled to it. I'm not going to be mad.
129.
Hey, man, what the heck?
Well, the +1 took it. Keep in mind, Techtic used both
That's
of
correct.
his 1 options, and I don't think Illeagle used either of his.
I was planning on using my +1 on the last question. See what I should have done? Strategy. I should have guessed like 1 million. So then you couldn't +1 me, but then you could have guessed 1 again. Dang. Or no, you could have guessed like 500.
But I still would have won, wouldn't I?
lost.
Or no, you would have tied it. You had the opportunity to tie it.
I could have tied it if I had used the smart part of my brain. But what was the answer, Nerdbomber?
Yeah, I didn't tell you guys whether... Oh, no. I did say that he won.
You did. You
Okay.
did. You said he won, yeah.
There are 3,500 and counting separate enemies in Final Fantasy
A lot.
XI. The final
Shout out to
question...
the Final Fantasy devs. That's insane.
It is insane. Final question here. This is my personal favorite. In what year did Square Enix partner with Dippin' Dots to promote Chocobo Mystery Dungeon, which is a spin-off of Final Fantasy?
Yeah, the chocobo is the chicken that you can ride.
Yep.
I know that about Final Fantasy. It's like one of the few things that I know.
So that was in 2002.
2003.
Illeagle, you finally got a second point. 2019.
Yeah, it
it was
feels right.
fairly
Wow.
recently.
Don't patronize me. You finally got a second point.
Sorry.
Golly.
See, I felt like
All right, well,
I felt like Dippin' Dots were like more rage in early 2000.
Dippin' Dots are the ice cream of the future, man.
Yeah.
Step off.
Yeah, but like
they're still going on, man. They're still here.
If there's a future, there will be Dippin' Dots.
Dippin' Dots not that good. I'm just throwing that out there. Shout out to Dippin'
You
Dots. They're
shut
not
your
that great.
mouth. Dippin' Dots are fantastic.
All right, we'll argue about that off the air. But for now, I moved to 7 and 8. Techtic moves to 8 and 6. Nerdbomber is still at 6 and 8. Steven 1 and 1. Nerdbomber ruined your undefeated record. I will never forgive it.
Sorry, not sorry.
Thank you all for joining us for this fantastic episode of the Online Warriors podcast. You can head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review there. If you're interested in giving us some feedback, hit us up on Twitter as well. Our handles that I mentioned at least once in the back or the earlier part of the episode. And I think that, didn't we decide, is the tech tip today? Oh crap, what was it?
I got one.
Oh man, it was funny too, is what I was going to say, but you do yours, that's fine. Take us out with the tech
So
tip.
if you only know of 25 letters in the alphabet, I'd like you to take a moment and think about why.
That was pretty good.